Okay. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadati Sapatantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yutapadakkamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitangscha Namom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatadeshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kantha Radha Kantha Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shadvaita Gadadhara Sivasadi Shigora Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So we stopped at the text 15. The birth of Lord Brahma, that's what we were describing. Yes?
Yes, Prabhu.
Last Sunday. Thank you. So we will just discuss again the text 15 and we'll carry on to the last verse of this chapter today. Hopefully we'll finish it. And we can attempt to, even if you have go a little bit longer, it's okay. So Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayet Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So the previous text 14 was piercing through this sum total form of the fruitive activity of the living entities took the shape of the bud of a lotus flower generated from the personality of Lord Vishnu. And by his supreme will, it illuminated everything like the sun and dried up the vast waters of devastation. So that was the piercing or the birth of the lotus flower. That ultimately becomes the resting place or the samadhi place of Lord Brahma. But this lotus, when it started piercing off the body,
sorry, I think someone is knocking the gate.
Started showing up at the lotus in the universe from the navel of Lord Vishnu. It dried up the energy, the effulgence, dried up the last remaining waters of devastation from the previous day. And therefore, Lord Vishnu here It becomes the source of that lotus bud. And it illuminated everything like the sun. Quite an interesting description. So let's go to text 15, which is where we start today. Taloka padmam saveva Vishnu pravivista sarva gunabhavasya abhashang tashmin swayam vedamayo vidhata swayam bhuvam yam smavadanti sobhut. Into that universal lotus flower, Lord Vishnu personally entered as a super soul, and then it was thus impregnated with all the modes of material nature, the personality of Vedic wisdom, and whom we all call self-born, was generated, Swayam Bhuvam. Okay? So, the lotus flower is a universal Virat form of the gigantic form of the Lord in the material world. It becomes amalgamated in the personality of Lord Vishnu in his abdomen at the time of dissolution. So it comes up and it goes back in. And it becomes manifest at the time of creation, goes up, illuminates everything, dry up the remaining waters of devastation from the previous dissolution. So this is due to Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who enters into each of the universes. So without him entering as the super soul of the universe, nothing happens. All the ingredients are there, but everything gets suspended. So in this form is the sum total of all the fruitive activities of the living entities. So what causes us to come back to this material world as an individual soul is the resultant of the fruitive activities within our system, mind-body complex. So then we are born again with the desire for fruitive activities, or to enjoy or to suffer the consequences of the result of previous karmas or fruitive activities we have performed in the previous creation or the previous period of existence. So therefore we come back in, right? So then all the fruitive activities of all the living entities is kind of embodied into that lotus flower that is created within that universe. And all the living entities are within. And then all the universes will be created as kind of an expansion of the subtle form of that lotus, so to speak. So namely, in this form is a sum total of all fruitive activities of the living entities conditioned by material nature. And the first of them, namely Lord Brahma, is a controller of the universe. He is then generated from this lotus flower. That's fairly clear. So this firstborn living being, unlike all the others, has no material father. So Lika, you have to unmute. Just so much noise. Yeah, thank you. So the firstborn living being, unlike all the others, has no material father. And thus he is called self-born or Swayambhu. So then he goes to sleep with Narayan at the time of devastation. And when there is another creation, he is born in this way. So from this description, we have the conception of free, the gross Virat form, the subtle Hiranyagarbha, and the material creative force, which is Brahma, who is intelligence, Vedas personified. So he creates with his intelligence using his subtle body. And the subtle form is called the Hiranyagarbha, or the golden egg. And the gross Virat form is the sum total of the material elements into that lotus flower. So some imagination is required, some three-dimensional thinking, but at the same time understanding that all these things are beyond easy grasp if we think in terms of, we are used to thinking in Cartesian coordinates. Our mind is trained to think in terms of space and mathematics and, horizontal, vertical, longitudinal. So we think like that. But not everything can be explained according to that, but that's the Western way of thinking. Okay, so at least we can use those tools that we have in our mind, in our intellect, to try to understand these things and use some logic and also try to reconcile it with understanding that this is Shastra. So what is said is very clear, but what is understood may not be so clear to us. So in the next verse, 16, Tasyam chachamboruha karnikayam avastito lokana pasyamanaha parikrama vyamni vivityasetas chadvarilebhe unudish mukhani. Brahma, born out of the lotus flower, could not see the world, although he was situated in the world. He therefore circumambulated all of the space, and while moving his eyes in all directions, he achieved 4 heads in terms of the 4 directions. So Lord Brahma, he wanted to understand because he could not see everything what's going on. So he circumambulated all of space. He went up, down, round and round. And while moving his eyes in all directions, trying to understand, he achieved the 4 heads. So Tashmad Yugantam Susana Vagurna Jalormi Chakra Sarilad Viruddham Upashita Kanjam Uloka Tattam Natmana Muddha Vidadadi Devo. Lord Brahma, situated in that lotus, could not perfectly understand the creation, the lotus or himself. So the Lord Brahma his appearance is quite informative because he actually can't understand what's going on in here. He could not understand the creation or the lotus or himself. So this is where the Lord instructs him on the spiritual science of the Vedas. So even Lord Brahma, he could not understand everything. So he needed Shastra, he needed Vedic injunctions. So the Lord actually taught him the Vedas, gave him the Vedas, and he went over the Vedas, fully understand it 3 times to see what's going on and to understand the purpose of all that is there. So Lord Brahma, he at the end of that millennium, the air of devastation began to move the water and the lotus in great circular waves. So it's like, circular waves were generated and there was air of devastation, wind, and then the heat and everything. And then the lotus in great circular waves, that is because of the air of devastation was still there. Then the waters were being absorbed and the air, everything just like after a cyclone, everything is just calming down. So Lord Brahma, I read the purport. Lord Brahma was perplexed about his creation, the lotus and the world, even though he tried to understand them for 1 millennium, which is beyond calculation in the solar years of Lord Brahma, in the solar years of human beings. So, sorry, no one therefore can know the mystery of the creation and cosmic manifestation simply by mental speculation. So there was still air of devastation and the water was choppy. And some calming is going on, but still you can see that there has been some very intense things that has gone on. And even the whole night of devastation was there in the morning of creation or the morning of the next day of Brahma. Here it's not very clear. So the human being is so limited in his capacity that without the help of the Supreme, he can hardly understand the mystery of the will of the Lord in terms of creation, continuance, and destruction. So there's some, can you imagine this, right? Can you understand this? Literally, the explanation is quite clear by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so we go to text 18. Kaisa yosavaham abja pristhai tat kuto vabjam ananyapshu asti yadashtadiha kinchanaitad adishtinam adhishtitam yatra satanubhayam. Lord Brahma in his ignorance contemplated. Lord Brahma in his ignorance, quite interesting word. Contemplated, who am I that I'm situated on the top of this lotus? Who am I? Keami. Wherefrom has it sprouted? What is the source of this here? There must be something downwards, and that from which this lotus has grown must be within the water. He can see the circular waves going on. He can see the air circulating. He can feel that there has been some motions. It's calming down. And he could experience all of that, but then everything is swaying and he cannot understand, what am I doing here? Who am I? Right? So he thought, there's a lotus here. So the stem of it must be coming down from the lower regions. And he could see the water. So let's see what he does. So the subject matter of the speculations of Brahma in the beginning regarding the creation of cosmic manifestation is still a subject matter for mental speculators. So Lord Brahma, he was asking questions and trying to reason with his intellect. People still do that now. But the most intelligent man, he tries to find the cause of his personal existence and that of the whole cosmic creation. And he tries to find the ultimate cause. So immediately Prabhupada is saying here, if he's attempt to properly execute with penance and perseverance, so immediately Prabhupada, he puts this formula there, that unless there is austerities and perseverance and patience, and it's impossible to achieve this kind of knowledge and understanding. So Brahma, being a very intelligent personality, he could understand that. So any questions or comments? Everyone's with me? Yep.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Lord Brahma's ignorance, as this test states it, is something very introspective, in that in the purport, the purport was mentioned, even in the previous test to that, it was mentioned in the purport that the living entity does not have the capacity to be able to understand the creation of the Lord or the activities. So unless by the mercy, of course, Prabhupada mentioned in the purport that only by the mercy of the Lord. And what if someone says this is dogma? How do we respond to that?
Well, we already accepted that this is pramana. Pramana means that everything is being said is an experience related by some great personalities who have seen the reality. So you can look at it as dogma or you can look at it as revelation. From where you're standing, you can put a tag on it as dogma, you can put a tag on it as revelation. Because whichever way, ultimately knowledge is obtained from the descending process, Arovabanta. So because it is descending knowledge, or it is sometimes also experiential knowledge of someone's understanding of what's going on because they have a personal experience of it, just like Vyasadeva, or the explanation of Shuta Goswami, then everything here can be allocated to dogma. Because we can have our material senses, we can have no relationship, no understanding of anything beyond our sense perception. So we can rely on our induction, Hanuman. We can rely on our senses, which has Karanapataya, Vipralipsa, or has all the 4 defects. Or we can rely on high authority. So when you rely on high authority, you can just say it's dogma, because I haven't seen, I have no experience.
Thank you. I think the angle from which you answer the question is very, very authentic and self-satisfactory. They're using the pramanas, because that's what I was thinking in the back of my mind. But very good area to approach it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Lord Brahma thus contemplated entering the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root. So Lord Brahma thus contemplating entering the water through the channel of the stem of the lotus. But in spite of entering the stem and going nearer to the navel of Vishnu, he could not trace out the root, because this is a gigantic affair. And it's also very subtle, Hiranyagarbha. And he could not understand. Even going almost to the edge of the water, he could not trace out the birthplace of the stem, which is a navel of the lotus navel, which is a center of the lotus navel of the Supreme Lord, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He could not actually trace that out. So it's a very nice example too, because if Lord Brahma, he was there physically present and he could not trace it out. So we can take that as a description that is experienced by Lord Vyasadeva as written to give us this information. We have to either accept it or create a Purva Paksha, an alternative explanation, which will be also dogmatic because there is no experience of anyone. So therefore, we have to accept it as Pramana, as Vaishnavas. So by dint of one's personal endeavor, in the purport we read, one may go nearer to the Lord, but without the Lord's mercy, one cannot reach the ultimate point. So we can try to physically be in a proximity of the Lord or the deity or some information or the books or whichever of the manifestations of the Lord in this material world, which will manifest the knowledge of it, will be manifest on our senses. But how do you understand something that is of the nature of the Supreme Lord, which is in itself Swarupa, Shakti, his own personal manifestation of his spiritual energy? How are we supposed to understand those things to the material senses? We are close or not close, we can't understand. But if we apply a process, apply a system of understanding which is of the same nature of the Lord, which is Bhakti. Bhakti is Lord Krishna's own Swarupa Shakti. Right? So Prabhupada here is quoting 1855. So he said, Bhaktya mam na vijanati. By bhakti alone, one can understand him. No other process. Because bhakti is of the nature of the Lord. Bhakti is not from this world. Bhakti is independent. Bhakti is spiritual. Bhakti is always transcendental in nature. So with bhakti, you can understand something that is beyond our senses. That's a very interesting point.
Very.
Yeah. So text 20. Tasmai spare viduratma sargam vichinvato bud samahang srinemi yodeha vajang bhayange vadeha vayam ire yadeha bhajam bhayami harayan irayanaha parikshinoti ayurajasya heti. O Vidura was searching in that way about his existence. Brahma reached his ultimate time. So it's always like that. We are searching where we come from. Who are we? That's just a natural inquisitive nature of the jiva brought about by his Chit Shakti, which is inherent in him. So therefore Brahma, he reached his ultimate time, which is the eternal will in the hand of Vishnu, and which generates fear in the mind of the living entity, like the fear of death. So what's the explanation in this? So he reached as far as he could up to the point of the origin of eternal time, but then again, he could not understand it. And when you reach something, at the end of something, there's always fear. So it is said that which generates fear in the mind of the living entity, like the fear of death. What generates fear? What generates fear in the heart of a living entity? It's time, right? Another thing that generates fear in the heart of a living entity. Can anyone remember?
Apart from time, is death.
Yes, it's sinful activities.
But what of those who do not understand that they are sinful? There are some living entities who are grossly sinful, and they cannot even comprehend that they are sinful.
It will still create fear. If you don't understand, it will still definitely still it will still create fear. The effect that there'll be, because sinful activities, the consequence of sinful activities is punishment, is pain, is suffering. And you know that there's going to be some suffering. Just like you're going down the motorway and you're going past 100 kilometers an hour and there's a speed limit and you saw a policeman and he saw you and he's on a motorbike. You'll be afraid he's going to chase you up, he's going to stop you, and he's going to charge you a big fine. But you take the same scenario, you're going 75 kilometers an hour, the speed limit is 80, you saw the policeman, you can wave to him and you can just pass by. No fear. Right.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah. Like somebody who has killed somebody, we have the fear that either some people are after him or eventually he will be killed. So that could generate fear inside into his sinful activities.
Grows and there's everything else. Even if you've done some small sinful activities, the general sense of fear we have is because of those. It doesn't have to be if you kill someone, it could be anything. There is big and small, minute and large, quantum of fear in our body because of, if someone is completely anaga, completely sinless, he doesn't have to have fear. Like Lord Krishna addresses Arjuna like this. He said, you anagam. He said, you don't have to have fear because you are sinless, Arjuna. So can you imagine that Arjuna, he approached this whole war, and he's twanging of his bow and his arrow, and he's being on the chariot of Krishna, was sending fear in the heart of the enemy, especially those who are sinful. But those like Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was sinless, he had no enemy, he would have no fear. So they had an advantage. So fear is a result of, okay, I've done something wrong, I'm waiting for the outcome of it all. So any sinful activity or past papa bijam, sinful activities committed in the past, generate that sense of fear of everything we have. So we are in a comfortable zone, we are comfortable with things the way it's going on. And then when there's some changes, we shake, we don't like, we just upset, because you may think, okay, it was okay, I was tolerating the problems, but now things will happen that is going to cause me disturbance, cause me anxiety, cause me problem, cause me loss, cause me, suffering and such things. Why? Why? Because it is the effect of the sinful activities that we have in the heart, or sinful activities that we have committed. And the seeds of the sinful activities as Papa Bijam is there. Okay.
In between sinful life and pure devotional service is the state of practitioners, those of us who are trying to be a Bhakta. Now, at that stage, there is no pure Bhakti and there is no gross sinful activities. In that state of consciousness, how do one manage fear that comes along with death and many other things?
Yes, it's a very difficult question to answer because Krishna does say in the Gita, Yeshva Tantagata Papam Jananam Punya Karma. Unless our load of sinful activities are finished, we will have consequences to that. At the same time, by the chanting of the holy name of Krishna, we know that our sinful activities are finished. But we still cannot say that we are fearless in our devotional life. So the gross sinful activities aren't there, and the reactions of past sinful activities do not pose a big threat because we are constantly chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And we are not expecting that we're going to be suffering because of our sinful life. Then again, why do we have fear? The issue is the sinful activities kill the prarabdha karma. But what if you have desires where the desires are dropping little seeds of sinful activities in the heart? Then it becomes, and the desires are dropping in the field of the heart that will manifest into activities that are contrary to dharmic principles. And why are those seeds dropping? Because there are trees of sinful desires that have grown and they're setting seeds. Which are not fructified. So up to the point that we haven't uprooted the seeds of desire where we are the center of life, center of our existence, then we will be shedding seeds, Papa Bijam. It's called Papa Bijam, seeds of desire that will fructify in due course and then they become Phalanmukha karma. We are in front of our karma that is bearing fruits. So the best way is to have no desire for any pritak bhava, for desire for have any existence away and separate from Krishna, be in his service. Just like a child, he has no desire to be away from his father and mother. So he feels safe and protected. He has no fear. But as soon as the parents are not here and there's darkness and there's some noise, the child will experience fear. Yes?
It's deep.
So why do we say that fear is a great sort of indicator of our own situation in spiritual life? So many things have been written about fear, which is like, for example, the sannyasi is fearless. It is also said that abhaya charana aravindare, we become abhaya. We become fearless at the lotus feet of Krishna. So we have to try. But whenever we have experience of suffering, we also have to know that it is due to what we've been talking about, the seeds of desire that's shedding. Because unless we uproot the last seed of sinful desire from our heart, the small plants, the small weeds will drop seeds of desire, and seeds that will grow and fructify into trees that will bear fruits, which is called fruitive activities. So the whole thing is tied up together, and we have to clean up the heart, the consciousness of these sanskaras. Yeah, the past sanskaras. The past I've explained that maybe, that are you there? Yeah, everyone? So the past samskaras, things that we have committed, things we have done, coalesce together to form vasanas, right? Bits and pieces of things put together form vasanas, which is a bigger bundle of desire. And then it gives that impetus, right? Which is called utaya, for action, which causes, therefore, actions to be translated into fruitive actions, either good or bad. So we can move on. So let's see what here Prabhupada is saying in the purport. Samadhi involves, so what he does, he controls, so thereafter, okay, I'll read the text again. Thereafter, being unable to achieve the desired destination, which is knowing what is my source, what am I doing here, who am I from? He retired from such searching and came back again to the top of the lotus. Thus, controlling all objectives, he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. He had that much of piety that right from the beginning, Lord Brahma had his objectives, understanding his objective, his relationship with someone superior, the Supreme Lord. So he was not completely in ignorance, because he can see that, okay, I can only understand this by the mercy of the Lord. So he concentrated his mind on the Supreme Lord. So, so samadhi involves concentrating the mind upon the supreme cause of all, even if one is unaware of whether his actual nature is personal. So he may not have information about his personal nature, the personal nature of the absolute, whether it is personal, impersonal, or localized. Personal means Bhagwan, impersonal means Brahman, localized means Paramatma. So whether his actual nature is Brahman, Bhagwan, or Paramatma, he can actually engage his mind upon the supreme cause. So concentration of the mind on the supreme is certainly a form of devotional service. To cease from personal sense endeavors and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. So there's no sense of personal endeavor, personal motivation, separate from understanding the Supreme Lord. So therefore, it is considered a sign of self-surrender. When there's Pritak Bhava, when there is this mood of being separate, let's say, for example, how we define devotional service. You've studied Bhakti Shastri and you know this famous verse which describes Uttama Bhakti. What is that? Anyone? Yes. What is it?
What's that verse?
Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasa. So Krishna Anusilanam means it is related to Krishna. What means Anavrittam? Means it is not covered by other desires except the desire to serve Krishna. So how is that? We always have desires. We need money, we have desire for money. So how is our sadhana bhakti and that we are practicing Krishna consciousness and the sense of wanting money? In 2 hours, we'll all be hungry and we'll be wanting food. So how is that anavrittam, not related to, how is it anavrittam, which is not covered, not any other except devotional service? When we will want to get food, we will need money. And you may be thinking, I want to finish this class, have something important to do. So how is what we are doing, therefore, devotional service in a sense of surrender? Understand that? So how is it?
Because there is the understanding that it is for the ultimate pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So we acting in that consciousness that our maintenance of the body, our looking for money to do one thing or the other thing, is ultimately to facilitate our
Our
serving the
bhakti.
Lord.
Our bhakti. So it is therefore considered part of bhakti. So say, for example, we get hungry in 2 hours and we go and eat, but then the eating is prasad sevaya. It is necessary component of bhakti. And we need money to maintain this life. But we don't need money for the sake of money. We need money to maintain this life because ultimately we are using ourselves in the service of Lord. So therefore it's jnana karmadi anavrittam. So we are following Bhakti Vaibhava or Bhakti Shastri, which is the following, the understanding, the jnana, the knowledge. But it is not separate from bhakti because it is not for a separate purpose covered away from bhakti. It is meant to actually feed the process of bhakti. So here, to cease from personal sense endeavor and to concentrate on the supreme cause is a sign of self-surrender. And when self-surrender is present, that is a sure sign of devotional service. Right? And the 6 symptoms of bhakti. So you can go there as well, but you can expand on this. So each and every living entity needs to engage in devotional service to the Lord, and if he wishes to understand the ultimate cause of his existence. Right? So without the devotional service, we may not be able to understand. So Brahma is kind of meditating on this aspect at this point. So text 22. Kalena hasujja purusha yusabhi pavritta yogena viruddha bodha swayam tadanta hridayeva bhattam apasyata pasyata yanma purnam. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge. And as a result, he could see in his heart the supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. So what he tried to do mechanically, searching with pratyaksha, with his sense of intelligence, mind and his senses, he could not see, he could not achieve. But now he can see in his heart the supreme within himself by the process of penance, meditation. So this is the right process of understanding the Supreme Lord. Any other process doesn't work. Even though sometimes you may achieve it, it is all only through the mercy of the Lord. Can anyone quote another example where once the Lord appeared in the heart and then it disappeared, and then the devotee, the practitioner in Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, he tried again and then he was unable? Try.
Yes. Narada Muni.
Yes. Narada Muni. And why? Yes. Yeah. And why was it Chitra Prabhu? Why was it the second time he tried, he didn't achieve?
Because the first one, Krishna wanted him to see that he's with him, but later on he wanted him to achieve him through austerity. So Krishna told him that he will not be able to see him again unless he does penances or he does austerity to see him. That
but he did the same thing that he tried before. First time he succeeded, second time he couldn't. What was the difference?
Yes.
The difference is he was mechanical in the second approach. He thought, I can do it again.
Okay. Okay.
The mechanical process of meditation. But the first time there was more inspiration, more love, more genuine desire. This time he said, okay, I can repeat it. It's not a mechanical process. You can read it in the program. Yeah. So at least one extra. So at the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge. As a result, he could see in his heart the Lord, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Okay? The Supreme Lord can be experienced only through the process of devotional service and not by one's personal endeavor and mental speculation. The age of Brahma is calculated in terms of Divya years, which are distinct from solar years of human beings. The Divya years are calculated in Gita. Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyat Brahmano Vidhu. Brahma's one day is equal to 1,000 times the aggregate of the 4 yugas, which is equal to 4,300,000 years. This is one kalpa. So on that basis, Brahma meditated for 100 years before he could understand the supreme cause of all causes. And then he wrote the Brahma Samhita, which is approved and recognized by Lord Chaitanya, in which he sings Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So one has to surely wait for the mercy of the Lord before one can either render devotional service unto him and to know him as he is. So Bhaktya Mamna Vijanati, only he can be understood by devotional service. Okay, any questions? No? We'll carry on. Text 23. Mrinala Gora Yatashesha Bhoga Paryantamekam Purusham Sayanam Fanata Patra Yutamurda Ratnam Yuvirata Danta Yugandalo Toye. Brahma could see that on the water there was gigantic lotus-like white bedstead. So he could see in the water there's a huge bedstead, white, which was the body of Sheshanag, Ananta Shesh, on which the personality of Godhead was lying. Now he can see the Lord lying on that. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecked by the hoods of Sheshanag. Right? So there are some jewels requires a little bit of light and then they shine. But other jewels, they are so incredibly interesting that they actually radiate light. Okay? So the whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. Okay? So, sometimes we are unable to understand how can jewels radiate light, because spiritual things in their sattva, they are a source of energy because they're connected to the Lord's Antaranga Shakti. So they're not here, everything is reflecting the energy from the sun and the moon. And the universe by itself, the source of energy is Paramatma or the Jivas, and the Prakriti source of energy is from the sun and everything else, which is generated, and then it is reflected. So basically, everyone else is like a glowworm. But in the spiritual world, there's no need for sun and moon because it is self-illuminating. So here, the atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and the illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. Praksham Shipantam Harito Paladre Sadhya Branive Rudurukma Murtana Ratno Dadharo Shatiso Manasya Varnasrajo Venubujangri Pangrehe. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. This here, now you start to describe the beautiful darshan of Lord Garbhodakshai Vishnu, which goes on to about 10 verses, 24 to 33. And they describe the absolute beautiful darshan of Lord Vishnu, starting with this very beautiful verse. Okay? Preksham Shipantam Harito Paladre. So the luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. This is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet bedecked with jewels mocked it. The mountains, waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs decorated with jewels, pearls, tulsi leaves, and flower garlands mocked the scene on the mountain. So you can read that. It's a beautiful panoramic description. So the description of mountains bedecked with gold on top, and the shining of that gold creates a very incredible, beautiful coral mountain with gold on top. But the transcendental, beautiful color of Lord Vishnu is incomparable to this beauty of this coral mountain bedecked with gold. So then also these mountains have waterfalls, beautiful herbs and plants, and with panorama of flowers. So can you imagine a beautiful coral mountain, golden top, and beautiful plants and trees? Why is it taking this kind of explanations in its finery to describe Lord Vishnu here? Because Lord Vishnu is gigantic. He's gigantic. An experience of Lord Brahma is his beautiful, big, gigantic body of the Lord, bedecked with all these beautiful markings. And therefore, that the comparison is to a beautiful coral mountain. So a panorama of flowers, garlands, his hands and legs decorated with jewels, pearls, tulsi leaves on his lotus feet, and flower garlands obviously mixed with the tulsi garlands. Mock the scene on the mountain. So quite a beautiful explanation. So his bodily luster was like coral mountain. His yellowish garments are compared to evening sky. His helmet bedecked with jewels is like the golden summit of a mountain. And limbs with ornaments, such as tulasi and garlands, are compared to mountains with beautiful waterfalls and herbs. So that is a feature of Lord's beauty, and it is described in this way. So text 25. Ayamato vistarata sanama samana dehena lokataya sangrahena vichitta divya bharanang sukhanam krita sriyapashita seve veshadeham. His transcendental body, unlimited in length and breadth. Right? The transcendental body of the Lord can only be measured by his own scale, because it is unlimited in length and breadth. It's occupied the three planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. His body was self-illuminated by unparalleled rest and variegatedness. So it's not like he's just a boring personality lying there, but he is just absolutely stunningly beautiful and colossal, because it was impossible to actually understand the unlimited length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. And there's no parallel to any of his variegatedness that was seen in Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Quite a description beyond anything that we expect in our imagination. But we take it from Shastra, and we bend our heart and mind to understanding and appreciating it. So in the text 26, Pum samsakamaya vivikta marge abhyarchatam kamadugangi padmam pradarshayam tam kripaya nakhendu mayukha bimbang manukya bhinna gulicharu patram. The Lord showed his lotus feet by raising them. His lotus feet are the source of all awards achieved by devotional service. So the Lord was so merciful, he was showing his lotus feet to Lord Brahma. Such awards are for those who worship him in pure devotion. So Lord Brahma obviously here is getting the award of the darshan of the lotus feet of the Lord because he is in pure devotion to him. The splendor of the transcendental rays from his moon-like toenails and fingernails appeared like the petals of a flower. And the beautiful transcendental effulgence of his transcendental rays from his shining moon-like toenails. So again, very beautiful description in text 26. Pumsam is always Pumsaha, it's always about the Lord, the personality of Godhead. So let's read this purport because there's some deep revelations in this purport. Okay, everyone with us? So the Lord fulfills the desires of everyone just as one desires. Right? Pure devotees are interested in achieving the transcendental service of the Lord, which is non-different from him, Bhakti, non-different than him. Therefore, the Lord is the only desire of the pure devotees, and devotional service is the only spotless process for achieving his favor. So only by his pure devotional service we can understand and obtain his favor. And Sri Rupa Goswami writes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, okay, the first wave, first chapter, text 11. What does he write? Describes actually pure devotional service. Jnana karmadya navritam. And this is explained in the 19th chapter of the Madhya Lila. So pure devotional service is without any tinge of speculative knowledge and fruitive activities. Such devotional service is able to award the pure devotee the highest result, which is direct association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. According to the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, the Lord showed one of the many thousands of petals of his lotus feet. It is said, Brahmano savanavarattaram me dhyata shutta prarabdhante prarardha ante so buddhaya tapo gopa vesha me prashrayat avibhava. This is from Gopal Tapani Upanishad. It is Upanishad, one of the Prasthantraya, one of our proofs, pramanas that Vedanta uses. He says, after penetrating for millions of years, Lord Brahma could understand the transcendental form, not just of Lord Vishnu here. This is a very important purport. But he could understand the transcendental form of the Lord as Krishna in his Gopa vase, in the dress of a cowherd boy. This is where the confirmation of him getting darshan of Krishna is confirmed. So Brahmano sav anavaratam me dhyata shuta prarardha ante, at the end of the prarardha, which is the first half of his life. So at the end of his first half of his life, prarardha ante, at the end of his first prarardha. So the life of Brahma is two prarardha. Can you follow this, please? Yeah. First half, second half. At the end of the first half, so buddhyata gopa vesho me parasta tavir bhabuva. He actually get the darshan of Gopal in his Gopa vesh, Krishna in his cowherd boy form. And there he actually has his experience of writing it in Brahma Samhita in the famous prayer, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. Any comments? Text 27. Mukhena lokarti harasmitena parishpurat kundala manditena Sunaitena dharabimba bhasha pratyarhayantam shunasher subrivva. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. This is darshan of Lord Vishnu. So we are reading text 27. Okay. So he also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished the distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from the lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. So description of the beautiful face of the Lord. Mukhena lokharti harasmitena. This is a description of the beautiful lotus face of the Lord, decorated with kundala. Okay. Kundala means earrings, and so pleasing, manditena, and it dazzled with rays from his lips, bimba bhasha, adhara bimba bhasha, so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips, and the beauty of his nose, nasena, says sunasena, very beautiful nose, and subrivaha, and this beautiful eyebrows. So this meditation on this verse, if you are somehow bitten by Cupid, then this verse helps, because by looking at the eyebrows of the Lord and reading about the eyebrows of the Lord, then it removes sex desire. And by looking at the lips of the Lord, you can also remove various kinds of sensuality. And also by looking at the forehead of the Lord. So there's a description. I don't have the reference, but there is a very nice description that by looking at the different parts of the body of the Lord, one can actually, in the deity form, remove many of the material desires that's lurking in the deep recesses of our heart. So taking beautiful darshan of the Lord like that. If someone can find that reference, I had it, but my old computer is giving me trouble, so I'm using a new screen just now. So. Any comments? Text 28. Kadamba kinjal kapishanga vasasha swalankritam me kalayani tambe harena chananda dadena vasta shivatsavaka stalavalabhena. Oh, my dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with the Shivatsa, which is marking, signifying the place of Sri Lakshmi Devi on his chest, and a necklace of unlimited value. Okay? And he has a beautiful necklace. Let's see what else is described here. Pararadhyake yuramani praveka paryasta dondanda Tordanda sahasra shakham avyakta moolam bhuvanangri pendram ahindra bhogera divitta valsam. As the sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was a self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, because sandalwood is very valuable, and generally snakes, they're there, that's an arrangement of the Lord, so they protect the tree. So the Lord's body was also covered by the hoods of Ananta. So Lord Ananta Shesh was there, guarding, protecting, serving the lotus body of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. The word in the purport, the word avyakta moolam is significant. Generally, no one can see the roots of a tree because they're under the ground. But as far as the Lord is concerned, He's the root of Himself. The Lord is self-manifest, He is Swayam Prakash. So He's therefore the root of Himself because there's no other separate cause of His outstanding but He Himself. So in the Vedas, it is said the Lord is Swasrashyasraya. So Asraya. He is the shelter of His own shelter, or He is the shelter of Himself. So He is His own support, and He's a support of Himself. There is no other support for Him. Therefore, Avyakta means the Supreme Lord Himself and no one else. So there's nothing to support Him, to beautify Him, to render Him what He is. He does it Himself. Text 30. Chara charoka bhagavan mahindram ahindra bandhum salilopa guddam kirita sahasra hiranya sringam avirbhavat kashtubaratnam garbham. And now there's description of further beauty of the Lord. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as a abode of all moving and non-moving living entities. He is a friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is His friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, the Lord has seen the thousands of golden helmet hoods of Anantashres. And as a mountain sometimes is filled with jewels, so also His transcendental body was thus decorative valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is submerged in the water of devastation. So it is a whole gigantic comparison of the Supreme Lord with the mountain and the beauty of the. But the first description of the mountain was like a coral mountain, which is the blue coral, like a blue sapphire, Nila Mani, it is described. So in the text 31, Lord Brahma, thus looking upon the Lord in the shape of a mountain, concluded that He was Hari, the Supreme Lord. He saw that the garland of flowers on His chest glorified Him in Vedic hymns, in sweet songs, and looked very beautiful. He was protected by the Sudarshan wheel of lightning, and His ever. And even the sun, moon, air, fire could not have access to Him. Beautiful reading. When Lord Brahma, the maker of the universal destination, was thus saw the Lord, he simultaneously glanced over creation. The Brahma saw the lake in Lord Vishnu's navel and the lotus flower as well as the devastation water. The dying air and the sky all became visible to him. So he could see everything after that meditation. He could see that there is kind of a huge pond in the navel of the Lord from which his lotus is sprouting. But he could see it as being the body of the Lord and the depression of his navel, which is like a huge lake. And from there, he could see the lotus coming up. And he could see the air circulating, which was drying out, the space and the sky, right? So these all became visible to Lord Brahma. Sakarma bijam rajaso parakta prajasu shiksham yadeva krishta astud vishaga abhimukastamidyam avyakta vardmani abhishe abhivesatatma. Lord Brahma, thus being so charged with the mode of passion, indeed inclined to create, and after seeing the 5 causes of creation indicated by the personality of Godhead, he began to offer his respectful prayers in the path of creative mentality. So now he realized, I have a service here. I can see what's the causes, the setup, the Lord and me sitting there. I've meditated. Things are clear now, right? So then Lord Brahma now will start at this very start here, he can also see the fruitive activities in the jivas. The mode of passion is active. And therefore, he needs that mode of passion to create something in the world. So what will he do? He will take shelter of the Supreme Lord for this necessary energy of creation. So that's why the next chapter would be Lord Brahma's praise for creative energy. So he will need the agency of the Supreme Lord to empower him. So therefore he prays very carefully, cautiously. And some of the most beautiful prayers are the prayers of Lord Brahma for creative energy. So that is a powerful, successful termination of any attempt, is we pray to the Lord for mercy. So this, it brings to the end of the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 8th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is entitled Manifestation of Lord Brahma from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So there's description of Lord Vishnu, description of his appearance, the bird rising from the navel, initial ignorance of Lord Brahma, then he enters 1,000 celestial years, of meditation, and then everything is illuminated. Then he sees things for what they are. He has an inspiration that he has a service that is to be to create, that is instilled in him by the mercy of the Lord, and now to use all the ingredients that is supplied to him, including the jivas are there in the stem of that lotus. Now he has to allocate different bodies, different structures, a framework is given. Everything is there. Now he has to, I place everything together and start Visarga. So far it is Sarga. Up to what we've seen here, it's Sarga, primary creation. Now Lord Brahma is going to engage in Visarga. So before he does that, he prays for creative energy to get the right mindset for his seva. Because this our Lord Brahma is a pure devotee. So he has a different, very melodious, very devotional, very sweet, very much in sync with the desire of the Lord. So therefore, he does not endeavor anything independently. So the Brahma's prayers for creative energy, it starts with Brahmo Vacha. And he will say that after many, many years of penance, I have come to know you. And then he will see that unfortunately there are embodied living entities unable to know the Supreme Lord. And even though the Lord is a Prameya, he is worth knowing. And there's nothing superior to you, oh my Lord. So these beautiful prayers of the Lord will start. And this will be the start of the other unit 10. So that is the end of what we have understood here. So if you have any questions, any comments, I'll be happy to share, or any reflections you want to bring up.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. The only thing I can say here is that I don't know if it is something that is possible. If we can do an overview of the unit, in the remaining few minutes that is remaining,
maybe you can present. You have the notes. You have the. So anyone can. It's better that you say some things, and then I will maybe give some reflections. Anyone?
I'm thinking of using the Mayapur Institute.
Yeah, the unit format. Yeah, I don't have it on this computer, unfortunately. You had shared with me, but I don't have it with me here. Unless
I can share on the screen.
Yes, please do.
That's what I'm trying to do, so that we can unit 899.
So I've covered
Okay.
these 8 chapters with you, right?
Yeah, so this is where we started. Preliminary study question 1. Okay, wait.
So okay, I can go over that if you want. You just leave it there.
Let me go to the questions by Vidura. So these are preliminary studies, yeah.
So okay, thank you, Prabhu. Just leave it there for a bit, right?
Okay.
So this is from a Purva Swadhyay. So this 10 questions related to chapter 1, right? Go down a little bit. Go down more, and then I want to read the rest. Okay, go down.
Yeah.
All right, go down more. I want to see till the end of this section. Go down.
Okay.
Okay, okay, fine. So this is the overview of the Canto 3, chapter 1. And then the overview is broken into the different verses. So now you can go up and we can look at the questions.
Okay.
Okay, fine. So what was the incident which caused the war of Kurukshetra? So that you can explain. Anyone can attempt?
Yes. That is, it's the Pandavas' demand of their part of the share of the kingdom, and from the King Dhritarashtra, and King Dhritarashtra was refusing to give them, even when they asked for just 5 villages. King Dhritarashtra refused to give them just 5 villages for them to rule after they came back from exile. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. And the various injustices they had done. And there was no negotiations to reach, even after Lord Krishna went out.
Yes.
Right. What reason does Vidura give for returning the legitimate shares of the kingdom of the Pandavas and expelling Duryodhana? So this is a text 12 and 13. Yeah. So now I have a question here, Prabhu. Have you actually been doing these questions and posting it somewhere for someone to check on, or the administration or myself, or how is that been doing? What has been the procedure so far? I think that we should have been able to do these, you know,
what normally we do is depending on different teachers, different style of teaching. And because your style of teaching was a little bit more in-depth. So I just wanted to hear how you, do I say your summary explanation of this, summary explanation of this question, because you've treated all of this with us in detail.
So I think it would be the best policy then, yeah. So you go back to the recordings and you go back to your notes and then you answer the questions, because it's not, I think I should have looked at that, and you should have gone through that. As we finished each chapter, these questions should have been answered in your own writing. And that will make a very nice, revision and Purva Swadhyay. Without answering the questions, then everything becomes very difficult. For me, I can go over it. I'll have to go over again, over the bits and pieces of the verses and answer. But as you go over it and you have it written and you have it printed on pages for you, then you have it for always. And then this makes really, this is 2 things. It is also Purva Swadhyay before, but it is also Uttara Swadhyay, that is revision after also. It is all for Purva and Uttara, both. So once you do it, it is difficult for because it goes faster if you actually answer the questions in the beginning. Because then the reading goes, I could have gone deeper into the reading if you had done this, because I would have get feedback and reflections from you. It's been a little bit of, generally, it is the administration that does that because the teachers are too busy with things.
Yeah.
So then if I have to look into that. Then the other things generally that is required is you do these questions and you post them on the
what we normally do in the past is that after all of this forms part of our exams. Jan Prima, who is the coordinator, just selects out of these questions and it forms part of our examination, which is what we're going to be doing anyway in the next week or the upper week. So it's going to, some of these questions are going to come in our questions for the exams.
Which is a sitting exam without the book.
Yes, which we normally would do online.
Which
so those
goes for the 8 chapters, it goes an exam for 2 hours, right?
I think for the 4 chapters will be 2 hours exam. We've been having a 2 hours examination for each unit. So we're going to have the exams in 2 sittings, each of 2 hours.
Each unit for 2 hours exam, which is quite interesting. It's nice, and you will answer about 20 questions also, right?
Yeah, the 25 questions we normally answer.
25 questions. Okay, so that's a nice format. But I would suggest that as you go on, you to help the memory and to help the Purva Swadhyay and the study, is in each chapter, there's quite a comprehensive list of questions here. And you should answer the questions and write it and research it, type it and write it and keep it for yourself. And after you've done that, so you'll have about 40 questions or so. Can I be the, what do you call? No?
Co-host.
Can I be the host and I can move down, up and down? No?
Sorry.
No. Of course, you already have your orientation and you know how you're approaching it. That's fine, Prabhu. So I would recommend that that's what generally what is required at the VIHE is you do the questions and you upload it to know that you're actually doing the study. And they check that you have actually uploaded the questions answered properly into what we call in a shared file in, what do you call this? The cloud in the, what's his name? I don't know, what do you call it? I've forgotten.
Cloud or Google Drive?
Google Drive, yeah, of the Google Drive. So then if you have these things uploaded in the Google Drive, each.
Maybe I should stop the live